Welcome back to The Legend of Heroes Trails to Azure. Now, like in Trails of Zero, when I finished a major arc, like a day or the end of a chapter, like we did last time, I look up in the guide if I missed something vital. And I did. Apparently in the city library there's another hidden quest or something. If you're looking for the director, he's lost in conversation with Mr. Nielsen. That was announced, but I didn't think something would come of it because dialogues outside didn't change, so I didn't expect them to change within a room. I'm sure he'll realize his break is already over one of these days. Alright then. And just for orientation, this is when we're on our way to mines, yeah? So I see. That's certainly an interesting way to put it. Oh, hello Lloyd, my boy. Your timing couldn't be better. This is Nielsen, the man I told you about earlier. So, you're the international journalist then? Nice to meet you. I'm Lord Bennings of the CPD Special Support Section. Ah, so this is the SSS. And if you're Lloyd, it will make you its leader, right? You have a very clean, crisp voice, if you don't mind my saying. Pardon my asking, would you happen to be blind? That's correct. I lost my vision in an accident many years ago. There you are, Director. Your break has been over for ages. The front desk misses you, you know. Whoopsie daisy. Seems I got a bit too wrapped up in our conversation. You'll have to excuse me. Duty calls, as they say. Of course. Why don't we catch up and exchange notes again sometime soon? Sure thing. Drop by whenever you like. Looks like you're up, Lloyd. Take care. Oh, sure. What did he mean by... Please, allow me to introduce myself again. I am Nielsen, a freelance journalist. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. Same here, nice to meet you. Nielsen. Where have I heard that name before? Truth be told, I've been greatly looking forward to meeting with the Special Support Section. It's an honor. I'll be frank, I'd like to submit a support request of sorts. Would you be willing to hear me out? Sure, how can we help? The thing is, I'm currently conducting an investigation into the cult incident from this past spring. However, there are still several elements of the case that remain unclear to me. So, whom better to consult than the team that played a pivotal role in resolving that very crisis? You want to interview us about the cult incident? It sounds like you already know a thing or two about it. What should we do, Lloyd? Given the sensitive nature of the topic, we have to be very careful about what we reveal. You're right. But on the other hand, going through this interview might help refresh our minds on what actually happened. Cooperate. Well, if you insist, alright, we'll agree to an interview. However, say no more, I know there are things that one in your position shouldn't reveal. You're free to decline as many questions as you wish. I also think it would be best to consider anything we discussed today as strictly off the record. Got it. Thanks for understanding. One thing though, where should we hold it? I think doing it here could pose a problem. In that case, how about the seating area upstairs? It's relatively secluded and we know if anyone is nearby. I think it's a perfect spot. Sounds like a good idea to me. Let's head on over. Quest: Inside Scoop, the cult incident. Thank you for agreeing to this interview. First, let us begin by laying out the context behind the incident. It began with a DG cult whose creed called for rejecting ideas in favor of worshipping devils. Over 10 years ago, they committed a series of child abductions all over the continent. I would like to review the manner in which those kidnappings were resolved 6 years ago. At the time, a large-scale operation was conducted to expose and exterminate the cult's lodges across the continent. Can you tell me the forces responsible for carrying out that operation? Yes, it was national militaries and police forces, Bracer Guild branches across Lemuria, all of them. A joint effort between multiple national militaries, police forces and Bracer Guild branches, right? Correct. Due to the scale of the abduction, an international task force was assembled to carry out the investigation. Precisely. And leading that task force as its commander was Cassius Bright of the Bracer Guild, who... May I interrupt for a moment? When you say Cassius Bright, you mean the Brigadier General Bright, commander of the Royal Liberalian Army? Precisely. He retired from active duty and spent around 10 years as Bracer. He only joined the army 2 years ago. That's quite a career trajectory. Maybe so, but there's something else that caught my attention. The name Bright. I didn't consider it until now, but could there be any relation? Yeah, I confirmed it while reviewing documents during my training with the 1st Division. Cassius Bright is Estelle Bright's father, and Joshua is his adopted son. I knew it. That's some coincidence. I thought there was something special about her during our little foot race. Little did I know she was born to fame. So you know the daughter of Brigadier General Bright, do you? I'm well acquainted with her exploits through my work, but personally, not so much. It's kind of a long story, but we got to know her a little bit earlier this year. It's neither here nor there, though. My apologies for getting us off topic. Please continue. Very well then. 6 years ago, the suppression operation was carried out under the command of Cassius Bright of the Bracer Guild. That operation was believed to have wiped out as much as 90% of the cult's influence. Among the participants was a certain promising squad from the Crossbill Police Department led by one Sergei Liu. The same Sergei Liu who serves as section chief of the FSSS today. He and his 2 subordinates carried the flag of the CPD for that operation. Said subordinates would be none other than Arius McLean and Guy Bennings, the older brother of Lloyd Bennings. Looks like you've done your homework. You even know the connection between me and Guy. Even with police, there are only a select few who have this much information. When you've done this for as long as I have, you develop a reliable network of sources. Guy Bennings himself used to be one of them, in fact. He was? Yes, Guy lent me his aid time and time again prior to his passing. But I digress. There was also another crossbellion who played a role in the cult investigation. That would be Ian Grimwood, a lawyer and civilian advisor. Even then, Mr. Grimwood was well known and respected for his expertise on civil rights. I'm told he even contributed to gathering intelligence on the abductees. I do recall him telling us about how he assisted with the investigation. So that's the role he played. I've also heard that both the church and the mysterious organization made covert interventions down this line. Because of them, whatever influence the cult retained after the suppression quickly vanished. The church. Is that what Father Kevin was referring to back at the Altair Lodge? And the mysterious organization is likely that society we learned about. Both of them sure like to remain on the slide, don't they? Nevertheless, the cult's activities should have concluded years ago. And yet, several months ago, it became evident that remnants of the cult were still alive and well. I know you're all too aware of who I'm referring to. Of course, Joachim Günther, one of the surviving members, finally crawled out of the woodwork. Precisely. He clearly had knowledge of the cult's inner workings well before the incident. In the end, however, did Joachim Günther serve as their leader? He was a high priest. No, he wasn't. He was a high priest within the cult. That's right. He said as much himself. Yeah, but he also seemed to have a knack for research. It sounded like he supervised a bunch of experiments. I think that's what led to his familiarity with occult's inner workings. A reasonable theory. It was that position which allowed him to advance his research through the rituals they conducted around the continent. And after he successfully evaded the suppression operation 6 years ago, he went into hiding. Upon learning of former Speaker Hartman's weakness for a facility called Paradise, he was able to take refuge in Crossbell. Finally, he perfected a drug bearing the name for true wisdom: Gnosis. I'm unclear on the specifics, but my understanding is that he produced it to fulfill the cult's ambitions. That's right, the cult's ambitions. He said their goal was to make Kia into the true god. Yeah, he also claimed he could perceive things while under the influence of red gnosis. But in the end, we didn't get the opportunity to question him for all the details. As always, there are unanswered questions. But I do believe we've outlined most of the particulars behind the incident. So, now I'd like to finish by reflecting on the D2G cult's origins. Would that be alright with you? The cult's origins? Yes, would you happen to know how long the cult dates back? 500 years. The cult traces back over 500 years ago to Crossbell's Middle Ages. What makes you say that? We heard it from Joachim himself. He told us that powerful alchemists used to roam this land 500 years ago. According to him, the cult has been making use of their technology ever since. Though, of course, anything about the history prior to that is pretty unclear. I see. To think Joachim Gunther would willingly reveal so much. Yes, alchemists once lived in these lands, the very same ones who built Stargazer's Tower. It's amazing to think that their knowledge, which before was merely a legend, would be corroborated in such a sinister way. It's certainly surprising. Yes, and on that note, do you suppose this means that the little girl all of you took in is also over 500 years old? Just how much do you know about the incident? My apologies, that remark was uncouth of me. It was merely a ludicrous notion that I arrived at by combining our respective pools of information. I swear by the goddess that I wouldn't print such a thing, so please be at ease. Right. And with that, I believe our interview has come to an end. Thank you very much for your cooperation today. This whole experience was very enlightening indeed. Not at all, it was helpful for us as well. I believe it's time for me to be heading to my next appointment. If you excuse me then, perhaps we can do this again in the future, should the opportunity arise. For a blind man, he sure walks with a spring in his step. There really is something about him, isn't there? Yeah, he's full of surprises and more various than one. But he did give his word about Kia, so let's hope we can trust him. Right. What's up, Ellie? It finally hit me why his name sounded familiar. That man just now was Marcel Nielsen. He's a Crossbellan journalist who won the Pulitzer Prize about 10 years ago. Wow, even I heard of a Pulitzer Prize. Yeah, it's an international award given to the most outstanding journalist each year. That explains how he's so insightful. Wait, if he's on Crossbell, does that mean... Yes, he once worked as a correspondent for the Crossbell News Service. He was awarded a Pulitzer Prize for his coverage of a war, the very same one that robbed him of his vision. Since when he continued covering news all over the continent as a freelancer for several publications. Mr. Nielsen is distinguished among even the best journalists. He is that talented. Really now? Who would have guessed we were being interviewed by a celebrity? Marcel Nielsen. We should speak with him again sometime if we get the chance. Apparently, this is his first time back in Crossbell in 3 years. I'm sure he's thrilled to be home. Alright, looks like we're all done with your chat. Did you learn anything useful? Yeah, it was plenty interesting. By the way, Uncle Miles, how long have you known Mr. Nielsen? Well, he grew up in Crossbar just like you and me. We've been good friends since his days at the CNS. I heard Guy knew him pretty well back then too. Yeah, he mentioned that. Sounds similar to the relationship we have with Grace. Then again, I doubt Mr. Nielsen was as big of a handful for Guy. Not just looking if he's visiting the Crossbar times. No, okay. Oh, I already installed the... This is Randy's room. He's taking part in the Belgard unit's rehabilitation training right now. If my memory serves right, they were given some of that drug during the occult incident, right? Right. They aren't suffering from any serious after effects, thankfully. It'll take some time for them to get their senses and stamina back to where they were, though. I see. Well, I'm wishing all the guardsmen a speedy recovery. Yes, and hopefully Wendy will get to come home sooner rather than later. Welcome to Chateau de Varzy. I know, hold your applause. Wow, this is one classy room. Seriously, it's like something you'd only see in a model home. It obviously took you no time at all to get settled in. The decor looks rather expensive, and there's so much of it too. I asked an acquaintance of mine for a favor, and he hooked me up. I don't mind any of you dropping in unannounced if you ever feel the need to unwind. Speaking of which, how about we crack open that bottle over there to celebrate a successful move-in? How about we don't? We're still, you know, on duty. Ellie installs a mirror. This is Tio's room. She's still taking care of business out in Le Mans State, right? Yeah, the Epstein Foundation have her and Yona working in one of their research labs. State-law revisions have made it easier to expand the orbital network, so that's what we've been assisting with. I can't say I understand all the details, but it sounds like we're keeping busy. I just hope she can come back soon. Well, this is my room. I don't really have much to decorate with, so sorry if it looks a little bare bones. I'd call it more tidy than anything. Indeed, it's exactly what I would expect for someone like you, Noel. So, about that stuffed animal over there. Oh, that friend and I share a matching pair of plushies. I brought it with me from the CGF barracks. You did, huh? Honestly, it kind of helps pull the room together. Glad you think so. I'm still not entirely adjusted yet, but even so, it's good to be here. And one other thing I missed. That Siegel Inn's specialty dish, fried fish, a classic. There's a recipe for fried fish written here. Probably could have done this later, but... Now, this is just long enough that I say make an episode of it. So that is what I will do. Off screen, I replay the whole mine thing. And with that, I say, until next time when we actually start chapter 2, I'm Mace, and don't get lost.